December 1941. The cold.
In the summer of 1941, the war in the East unfolded with a speed that astonished even those who had planned it. Operation Barbarossa shattered the uneasy peace that had existed between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. German armies surged across the western frontier in vast columns of armor and men. Their progress measured not in miles but in entire regions collapsing before them. The Soviet state reeled under the sudden violence of the invasion. Its armies struggling to organize resistance amid the chaos of retreat and encirclement. To the north, the German Army Group North advanced with relentless determination toward one of the Soviet Union's most symbolic cities. Leningrad, the former imperial capital of Russia and the cradle of the Bolshevik Revolution, stood not merely as a strategic objective but as a powerful emblem of Soviet identity. Its name alone carried immense ideological weight. To lose it would be more than a military setback. It would strike directly at the emotional core of the Soviet state. Historically, the German advance slowed as it approached the city. Supply lines stretched thin, Soviet defenses stiffened, and the vast urban expanse of Leningrad resisted capture. The city endured a brutal siege that would last more than 2 years, becoming one of the most harrowing episodes of the Second World War. Yet in this alternate history, the course of events diverges in the crucial weeks of early autumn 1941. In this imagined timeline, the German High Command makes a decisive alteration to its operational priorities. Rather than diverting critical armored formations southward toward Kiev, the Wehrmacht reinforces the northern offensive. Panzer divisions that historically turned away now drive straight toward the approaches of Leningrad. Their objective is clear and uncompromising: the rapid seizure of the city before Soviet defenses can solidify. The result is a concentration of force that overwhelms the fragile Soviet lines guarding the outer defenses of Leningrad. German armor breaks through at multiple points along the defensive perimeter. Exploiting confusion among hastily assembled Soviet formations, Soviet commanders, already struggling to manage collapsing fronts elsewhere, find themselves unable to coordinate an effective counterstroke. The German advance gathers momentum as the defenders fall back toward the city itself. Within days, the ring around Leningrad tightens far more rapidly than Soviet planners had anticipated. Rail lines are cut, roads are severed, and communication with the interior becomes increasingly fragile. Refugees pour into the city while military units retreat through its outskirts, attempting to establish new defensive positions along canals, factories, and broad boulevards that once symbolized imperial grandeur. Joseph Stalin, in Moscow, confronts the unfolding crisis with growing alarm. Leningrad is not merely another city. It bears the name of Vladimir Lenin, the founding figure of the Soviet state. Its loss would carry a devastating symbolic resonance, potentially undermining the fragile morale of a nation already reeling from catastrophic defeats. Orders are issued demanding that the city be held at all costs. But the pace of the German offensive proves relentless. Coordinated assaults push into the industrial districts on the southern edge of the city. Artillery positions are established within range of key infrastructure, while German infantry divisions close in along the Neva River corridor. Soviet resistance is fierce but increasingly fragmented. Units fight desperately to hold factory complexes and rail yards. Yet the broader defensive structure begins to unravel. By late September 1941, the unimaginable occurs. German forces penetrate deep into the urban core of Leningrad. Soviet command posts struggle to maintain communications as fighting spreads block by block. Key administrative buildings are abandoned as Soviet authorities attempt a chaotic evacuation across Lake Ladoga before the encirclement becomes absolute. Within weeks, organized Soviet resistance inside the city collapses. German units secure the central districts and raise their banners over administrative centers that once governed the revolutionary capital. The fall of Leningrad sends shockwaves across the Soviet Union. News of the city's capture spreads quickly, despite Soviet efforts to control information. For many Soviet citizens, Leningrad had been expected to endure as an unbreakable fortress. Its fall challenges that belief in dramatic fashion. Factories far from the front whisper of the loss. Soldiers at distant defensive lines struggle to comprehend how such a monumental city could have fallen so swiftly. International observers react with equal astonishment. In Berlin, the capture of Leningrad is celebrated as a historic triumph. German propaganda proclaims it as proof that the Soviet state is nearing collapse. The victory appears to confirm the narrative that the Red Army cannot recover. From the devastating blows delivered during the first months of the war, for the Soviet leadership, the psychological consequences are severe. Stalin's regime had relied heavily on symbols of ideological permanence. Leningrad represented the revolutionary legacy upon which the Soviet Union claimed legitimacy. Its loss therefore creates a crisis that is both military and deeply political. Inside the Soviet command structure, arguments erupt over how the disaster had occurred. Some blame inadequate preparation of the northern defenses. Others point to the strategic dispersal of Soviet reserves during the chaotic early weeks of the invasion. Amid these recriminations, the urgent question remains whether the Soviet Union can stabilize its collapsing northern front. German planners now face decisions of their own. The capture of Leningrad opens new strategic possibilities. Control of the Baltic coastline strengthens German naval positions and disrupts Soviet access to the sea. Moreover, the elimination of the Leningrad front frees German divisions for potential redeployment elsewhere. Yet the most profound impact of the city's fall lies not in immediate territorial gains, but in the shifting psychological landscape of the war. For the first time since the invasion began, the Soviet Union confronts the loss of one of its most iconic cities. The myth of Soviet invulnerability has been shattered. Across the Soviet Union, the government intensifies efforts to rally the population. Patriotic messaging grows more urgent. Factories are ordered to accelerate production, while new defensive lines are constructed deeper within Soviet territory. The loss of Leningrad becomes both a wound and a warning. In the winter that follows, the Eastern Front remains vast and unpredictable. The Soviet Union still commands enormous reserves of manpower and industrial capacity beyond the reach of German forces. Yet the fall of Leningrad lingers as a shadow over the Soviet war effort. In this alternate world, the capture of the revolutionary city reshapes the emotional terrain of the conflict. It is no longer merely a struggle for territory. It becomes a battle for belief. Belief in the endurance of a state that has just witnessed one of its founding symbols fall into enemy hands. And in wars of such scale, belief can prove as decisive as armies.
Thanks for watching. If you found this journey into alternate history fascinating,